nocturnal ghosts. But that doesn't stop us, because very little can. While the Romans, the Ethiopians, and the Thai all have their view on the year begins anew, we know that our calendar centers around when the first doe comes into estrus, and the rut begins. Man the hunter has ever been present throughout our history. Hunting has in essence always been a part of who we are, a private exchange of life between hunted and hunter. But like seemingly all things we hold sacred, the landscape has changed. There is now an empire built around our season, with every form of media contributing to a commercial craze that has transformed our sport. Forgotten is the respect and reverence with which we once viewed our quarry, as it is starting to be replaced by a competition between hunters for their share of the ever-expanding spotlight. The private nature of the hunt is slowly giving away, dividing our once unified tribe of sportsmen into a number of fragmented camps. Perhaps on polar ends of the spectrum are the trophy hunting bow hunters who have evolved our sport in recent years, and the gang hunting riflemen who head afield with venison and a good story on the mind. This season brought these two perspectives to the Kansas harvest. Dustin from the rolling hills and crops of eastern Nebraska, and Aaron from the swamps and ridges of the Canadian Shield in Ontario. Two men, byproducts of two different schools of thought and experience, hunting the same farms, the same stands, and ultimately, the same deer. This is their season.
Deer season? For me, that's a season that never ends, especially in this world of whitetails. From early summer scouting to finding fresh spring sheds, these animals never leave my mind. Yep, I guess I'm a trophy hunter, but I'm proud of it. I set a goal every year to shoot a record book whitetail with my bow. And once that goal is met, the only thing to do is raise the bar and continue on. That's probably something I admire most about this sport. Knowing I can push my skills as a hunter to their highest level by hunting one of the most majestic creatures in the wood, a truly mature whitetail buck. Yeah, as far back as I can remember, I've pretty much been obsessed with antlers. I'm sure I picked this sickness up from my father. He carried me into the woods with him from a young age. I'll never forget sitting in between his legs in the tree stand and witnessing a harvest for the first time.
You like this spot?
As I grew older, he taught me a lot about how to achieve goals, just as he had done year after year. We managed the land, planted food plots, and hunted strictly in accordance to deer management, taking the time to study the animals and only shooting what we considered to be truly mature. And because of these facts, I'm fortunate enough to say I have harvested plenty of Pope and Young whitetails, and the hunt for a bigger buck each year will never end. Why do I say Pope and Young? Well, it's because I'm a bow hunter, always have been and always will be. Growing up in Nebraska, I'll never forget fearing the date of November 15th. It was opening day of rifle season. Every year, just as the rut seemed to be getting really good, I would hang up my bow for 2 weeks as the Orange Army would roam the woods. Dad had a taxidermy shop, and the big bucks would come piling in. I'm not sure if it was straight jealousy or the fear that the deer I was after would be shot. All I know is I could not wait for the woods to become peaceful again, and I could continue my hunt.
There's nothing like rifle season. Nestled nicely between, I guess, Canada Day and Christmas, it was by far our most celebrated holiday. When the leaves went and turned orange each fall, so did we. Why? I guess I never asked. I just learned what I could from the boys and their stories. Stories, especially the good ones, were kind of the spark that lit our annual inferno of blaze orange fun. The fuel for that fire? Well, that's what we hunted for. Our harvests weren't measured in the record book. They were measured on the plate. A quick and ethical kill that didn't mess up our beloved tenderloins, and we couldn't be more happy. Concerns about points and inches were a world away from us. Deer hunting was built on a binary code. If it's brown, it's down. Now, don't get me wrong. We love killing bucks. I guess years later, we'd be gazing up at their antlers pegged to the wall and try and dig up that story from our endless archives. We hunted to kill deer, but we sure didn't do it very often. Hell, we didn't even see deer very often, so when we did, we were ready. We created our own opportunities and took a lot of pride in capitalizing on them.
So gather round the stove, lad, and have a cup of tea. If you're wanting something stronger, the next round is on me. The credit for the critter hanging in that tree should go out to the doggers who pushed the deer to me. Sing hey, hey, ho, in the swamp down below. Sit quiet in the oaks up above. 'Cause the doggers are driving way down in the green, and the gunners are waiting to shove. Sing hey, hey, ho, in the swamp down below. Sit quiet in the oaks up above. 'Cause the doggers are driving way down in the green, and the gunners are waiting to shove.
The transition from, I guess, the communal revelry of my deer hunting roots to the solitary ambush of bow hunting was colossal. Considering in theory it was still enjoying the same sport and hunting the same animal. I missed the first deer I ever shot at when I was 13 years old, and they found my bullet 12 feet up a tree. Thankfully, I redeemed myself the next day with a heart shot. I can't say it was buck fever because both those deer were fawns, but it was my very first encounter with the rush that we hunters crave only to frantically fight off when it descends upon us. My first taste of the complete and utter madness that overruns us when we see that elusive flash of brown and white. Since that first big miss at 13, I've been a bit more lethal and actually killed every single deer that's crossed my path. This year, that changed. The zoo-like abundance of deer was beyond my wildest expectations, and I was actually startled by how quickly whitetail encounters became an expectation when taking to the stand. Yet for all the abundance of deer, the limitations of my bow just kept preventing me from getting a shot. It was difficult to cope with, having become, I guess, a spectator of the act.
Just getting the antlers on the wall and a success photo at the end of the hunt. This time of year is magical. Walking in during the frosty moonlight, hearing nothing but your own footsteps, it's still. With dawn, the world comes alive. As the morning sun turns the dying leaves into gold, words, photos, video, nothing will ever give these moments full justice. Sitting in those tree stands is home to me during the fall. It doesn't get old or boring. It's a consistent learning experience. Letting the deer walk by naturally and studying their every move is humbling. I know there are truly giant bucks out there, and I can always hope that my knowledge as a hunter will soon place me in one's path. When that moment finally comes and I see those tall tines walking through the timber, my heart will always skip a beat. But not long after, those practices of deer management will always kick in. I instantly start to study him. Is he old enough? Is he big enough? Is he the one? Is this the deer I'm going to put my tag on? More often than not, I'll hang my bow up and watch a buck walk right through my shooting lane. It's a gamble, and I can only hope that the deer I pass will someday become that king, the one that I want, and we will cross paths again. I often hear people say that they hunt to provide. For me, I know it's not the case. I can walk through a grocery store and easily see I can feed my family without hunting. Trophy hunting to me is more than just the meat. Hunters annually spend thousands of dollars on gas, clothes, new bows, new guns, ammo, arrows, scents, gear, food plots. The list adds up quickly. For me, those expenses are not important. The most expensive thing that I put into this is time. I'll spend countless hours and days in an attempt to achieve my goal, passing bucks and hanging up my bow time and time again. But don't take me saying that fact that I don't enjoy wild game. I will fill my freezer every year, and when the time is right, I'll use my doe tag, finally releasing an arrow and taking a life. Nothing can replace wild venison when it comes to a meal. It's the purest meat available, and as hunters, we should embrace that fact. I may not spend my buck tag on a meal, but the satisfaction, health benefit, and flavor of venison I harvested and processed myself is simply unrivaled.
Watching deer didn't end when the sun set and I climbed down from my stand. Our surveillance was endless, the flash of trail cameras illuminating for us the secrets that growing up we only dreamt to uncover. The cameras were fun and tantalizing, seeing the monstrosities that passed through in the night. Big, big deer. But frankly, there was a bit of a sadness in seeing the animals that were once ghosts, now being broken down pixel by pixel and plugged into a complex and arbitrary formula in an attempt to determine their worth. Gone, it seemed, were the nuances of the hunt, the intricacies of sign broken down by a discerning eye to craft a plan, to find any way to succeed. The idea that woodsmanship and poise were integral to success had clearly diminished, replaced in this theater by what I would consider to be a cultivation of animals, an effort not dissimilar to a farmer trying to raise a prize steer. I tried what I could to force success, but my efforts failed. With the similarities to agriculture fermenting in my mind, the reality that I was in pursuit of a wild animal was one that I was repeatedly reminded of. Hunt after hunt, the deer evaded me and my arrows. The battle versus their senses, I guess, needed to be fought a lot more furiously, with a bow in hand. But, being no stranger to fruitless hours in the stand, I guess I learned to enjoy the close encounters with deer, relishing the frustration, knowing when the time came, I would be ready.
Being with Aaron as he shot his first archer deer was definitely something I was glad to be a part of. Nothing will replace those moments when you finally reach success. He was beyond thrilled, and he should have been. It was his first buck with a bow. The passion and excitement he had when he realized he had just completed his mission made me realize just how much we have in common. He may have grown up in a hunting situation completely different than mine. Him as a rifle hunter, me as a bow hunter, but in the end, it was obvious that we both have that same passion for the hunt.
Dustin hunted relentlessly, right to the very close of the season. And his buck tag never left his pocket. A concept so foreign to me when we hung stands in September was frankly, it had grown to become a subject of my admiration. The commitment to a goal that withstood the temptation of some perfect opportunities at what I consider incredible deer. It was a lofty standard, but he kept it even through all the long, cold, wet hours of the season, and it was pretty impressive. Even sitting in the same stands though and using essentially the same weapon, the reality is still that we were worlds apart in our approach to the hunt. While I personally can't relate to the antler addiction, I do understand that it brings with it something very important and incredibly familiar. The rush.
You can't go home. You can't go home. But you can find another shelter you can call your own. You can't push time. You can't push time. But you can ride out every wave like an alibi. Your past won't leave. Your past won't leave. It'll stay with them like it stays with me. You won't break free. You won't break free. 'Cause death is gonna get you like it's gonna get me. Just run, run to the edge unbroken. Run, 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 run to the edge unbroken.
One man's quest to take an animal's life, our passion that should bring us closer together as hunters, is starting to drive us farther apart. While we bristle at the idea of our sport under attack from activists on the outside, the real threat to our hunting tradition comes from within, from groups of hunters failing so miserably to understand the basic union we share. We forget that regardless of weapon choice, antler size, or any of the endless measures of success we impose on one another, we are all hunting for the exact same thing.